Women don't always have the healthiest relationship with food. So I've invited Tanja Shaw from Fit and Vibrant You to come and chat with us about creating a healthier relationship with food. You're listening to Menopause Natural Solutions. This is episode 133, Creating a Healthier Relationship with Food. Welcome back, ladies. I'm your host, Jen, and today I have special guest Tanja Shaw with me. Tanja is a sought after life and weight loss coach, founder of Fit and Vibrant You coaching programs, owner of Ascend Fitness and Lifestyle, a holistic health coaching program in BC, Canada, and host of the Fit and Vibrant You podcast. Tanja has built a credible relationship for helping thousands take control over food, feel good in their body, and fully live their life. So, Tanja, thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for the invitation. I'm glad to be here.
What I love about the work that you're doing is that, okay, you're helping women lose weight, but you're not coming from it from a food point of view. You're coming from it from an emotional point of view, I guess one of the phrases I got from your website was it's more a peaceful relationship with food. And I love that. So, can you tell me a little bit about how you do this?
Yeah. And that's actually one of the most surprising things I think that a lot of the women who I work with, well, when they're surprised is when they start working with me, because they come because they want to lose weight, right? They come because they have that pain point. And we actually talk very little about diet. I mean, nutrition does matter, as you know, what you eat matters. And when it comes to cravings and hormones and everything, it does matter. But there's so much more to it. And I do actually focus very little on the actual what to eat, because that could be done in honestly like a 30-minute session. I could just teach you all that, but everything else that comes along with it. So when I work with my women, I follow kind of I have a bit of a pathway that I follow. And it starts with it's kind of yeah, it's kind of a pathway, kind of a three-step process. The first step I call is called see it. And this is all about getting some clarity on where you want to go. So often we say things like, I just want to lose weight. I want to, and that's what we start with. But what do you want? Do you want the confidence? Do you want the peaceful relationship with food? Where do you want to go? And sometimes we don't know where we want to go when we start. We just know what we don't want. We don't want the frustration anymore. We don't want to feel disgusted anymore. We don't want to feel the shame, that cycle, the energy that's the energy that we're putting into our diets all the
And
time. We
it's
don't
that
want that anymore.
constant thought too, isn't it? About what can I eat? What can I eat?
Totally.
What can't I eat? What am I having for dinner? Yeah, that constant
Ex-
loop.
exactly. And I call it like your mental real estate. And it's like life is happening all around you, but you just need to get yourself into life. And it's like, or you're operating in life with this sort of Charlie Brown cloud on top of you, or just sort of, or a veil, like you're just not fully able to be there. So we start, I call it the see it phase, or building the foundations. It's starting to just build awareness. It's starting to understand what you want. It's starting to build some really simple routines to start to create some momentum, to create some habits in your life as well. So before we even, you know, make changes, we actually do a little bit of work beforehand just to kind of set yourself up for success, because so often we have this history of going hard headfirst into the diet plan, and you overhaul everything, you clean out the pantry, and it usually means having that last supper and getting rid of all the food by eating it on the Sunday night, because it's forbidden after that,
Yeah.
without really setting ourselves up for success. So I do spend a bit of time at the beginning, usually the first 2 to 4 weeks of my work together with the women, on just laying the foundations, starting to get clear where we want to go, have some routines for us to stay motivated, to work on the mindset piece as well. And a big part of that is just starting to draw back the curtains and looking at what's happening, because quite often we're not even aware of the things that we're doing because we don't want to be aware. Because when we are aware of it, then we judge ourselves and we hate ourselves and we criticize ourselves. And unfortunately, unless you're aware of things, unless you're aware of your thoughts and your patterns and your habits, you don't get to change them. Because I don't know about you, I don't usually just fall onto the floor doing push-ups with like, just we don't fall into good habits. We usually fall into bad habits. So it's really important that we're more aware of that. And I start the first bit of my work together on building that. Now, the next phase, after we set some foundations, we set some routines, we start to create a nice morning, evening routine. We start to become aware of how, our patterns, our self-talk. We start to get clear on what we want, maybe some of the barriers in their past that have, that have gotten in the way.
Yeah.
Then we do something called the do it phase, or this is sort of like I call it clarity as well. This is all about learning some simple habits to improve energy, fat loss, to just make it work for your lifestyle. Because, like we said at the beginning, although I don't talk a lot about diet and nutrition, and that is still a part of it. You can't wake up in the morning, have a bowl of cornflakes and a glass of orange juice and a banana, and you wonder why you're having intense sugar cravings at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. is because you have not really fueled your body well. So what you eat matters, your physiology matters. And we want to really simplify this. One reason why so many women struggle with their diet and their food and everything is because we are following somebody else's food rules. Some diet guru says eat only 4 times a day at this time, but you do shift work and it doesn't work for you, or you really don't have time to eat a big meal at this time because you are on the floor, maybe you're a nurse or you're doing something. Or sometimes the foods that you're recommended are just foods you don't like. And there's just so many issues with that, and not to mention the mindset, but it doesn't work for your lifestyle, your preferences, what feels good in your body. We're just given these blanket rules.
Yeah.
And when I work with women, I think it's so important that we have a bit more of an empowered stance, and we decide, like, where am I? What's an improvement for me? And what are the things that I'm willing and able to do to take that next step forward? Because one really amazing thing happens when you start to implement habits that are reasonable, they're doable, they fit for your lifestyle, is you start to build trust with yourself. You start to be able to follow through with them. And then you start to create momentum. You start to create this identity of like, hey, I'm the kind of woman who follows through. Like, I stick to the things I say I'm going to do. And that is really, really powerful. A big problem
Those
that
small wins along the way, isn't it? It just
it's
builds.
so important. And I know your brain is going to tell you all the things that it's not enough. And if I did all the things, I'd be up further ahead. And which is all true. If you did all the things, you'd be a lot further ahead. But the reality is that we've all done that before. And here we are back at square one, feeling like a failure because it wasn't sustainable. One thing that we struggle with is having that trust. And if you think about a relationship you have with a friend, and if that friend always put you down, which we do a lot to ourselves, we criticize ourselves, we judge ourselves, we hate on ourselves, we call ourselves terrible names. And let's say you had a coffee date with that friend at 10 a.m. and she never showed up, and then she did it the next day, the next day, you wouldn't trust that person. And so if you're mean to yourself and you don't trust yourself because you don't follow through on promises to yourself, why would you like yourself? And so this process, you're absolutely right, Jennifer, about creating these small wins. It builds momentum. It builds the identity of like, I'm the kind of person, I'm the woman who follows through on promises to myself. And it's so, so important. It's not about getting to like the finish, not that there's a finish line, getting the weight off as fast as you can. It's building the identity of that person along the way. And that is going to be so amazing for long-term success.
I agree. So you were
So
saying the second step, you do start to look at some food, but there's also a lot of reinforcement of things that you've learned along the way. Was there anything
correct.
else that you wanted to add into that? Did I
Yeah,
just
I
thought I
mean,
might have taken you away.
no, you are. I could talk on forever on this stuff. I love this stuff. So yeah, so again, that first phase is like building the foundations. It's getting clear on what we want, why we want it, building some routines so we stay motivated, we stay consistent, so we stay focused on this journey. The next phase is that clarity piece where you actually have clear goals for every day that are based on where you're at and what's an improvement for you. We're not just, often we say things like, I'm just going to eat better. I'm like, what does that mean? And it's really hard to ever be successful or feel successful because we never clearly identified what our goals are. And so many times we go around feeling like we're not doing enough because we've never actually defined what enough is. So I follow 6 really simple keystone habits that I teach my women to help them get into fat burning stage, to fuel their body well, we talk about sleep, water, like basic stuff. It's not rocket science, but important things so that you feel good, right? And then along the way, while we start to implement these habits, the vast majority of my coaching, probably 95%, is on what I call the live it phase, or it's helping you follow through on your promises to yourself and overcome challenges. Because
And
if
there's lots of challenges.
there are lots of challenges, I mean, just because you start a program, even with me, we start working together, it's not like it's a smooth sailing all the way. I mean, that's the code that's it's part of the process. But so many women, as soon as we have challenges, we feel like we're not doing it right, or the self-doubts come in. Like you start to doubt yourself, you start to question like whether I can do this. And the challenge isn't when you feel super motivated and you're trying to meal plan for all 5 kids and you're a bit busy, but you're getting it in and you're getting up early to do your workout. The challenge really happens when you don't feel like it anymore. Like when you feel like giving up, when the self doubts become big, when you start to second guess yourself, when you have had some slip ups and then your negative self talk is going to take it away. And she's going to say things like, oh, here you go again. And who are you to think? That's the real challenge when you really want to give up. And I coach my women. One of the big things I teach them is how to overcome challenges. We have a process that we go through. But for so many of them, this is the first time that they've able to hit a roadblock, hit a challenge, and keep going. And it feels so scary because in the past, every time a challenge would come up, and that's again mostly the inner challenge. It's a negative self-talk. It's the not feeling motivated anymore, not feeling enthusiastic anymore, wanting to give up. When that happens in the past, they've just gone and given up, and that becomes one more failure, one more, I guess, case to show to prove that they just can't do this. And there is another way.
Wow. That is so amazing because I can't tell you how many women I've worked with over the years that do come back in. I've done this so many times before. This time's new, this time's different. That is not necessarily always the case. And that is that
No.
vicious cycle, especially for women. We tend to
Eh,
give ourselves these unrealistic desires and demands, and I want perfection. And
I
really,
know.
do you really want perfection, or do you want a peaceful life? Do you want
Exactly.
the energy to enjoy your life? We've also
Absolutely.
been confident and happy with the skin that you're in.
Hmm.
So I like that you're offering a very, very different way about it.
Well, one thing you said there I think was really powerful is that when you start, you've done this before, and when you start, you often believe that this time will be different because you are quite often we start a program, we decide we're going to lose weight, we're going to get more energy, we're going to overhaul our diet, we're going to start exercising. When we hit a pain point, we don't often, I mean, it'd be wonderful if we just did it and we started no matter what. But quite often it's when like, yeah, you hit some sort of rock bottom. You're sick and like you're really sick and tired of being sick and tired. Maybe someone makes a comment that and you look at a picture of yourself, you're like, oh my gosh, is that me? Or your clothes in your closet that used to fit no longer fit, or the biggest size in your of clothes in your closet no longer fits, or the doctor tells you something, or something happens that is going to create some sort of pain point. And the pain point can be so big that you believe that you will do whatever it takes to never feel like that again, to never feel that awful. A lot of the women, I asked them how they felt when they started with working with me, And the words that come out of the mouth are, it's awful. It's things like, I felt disgusted with myself. I felt completely hopeless. I felt depressed. I felt just exhausted. I felt like in despair. And you think that that pain point of feeling that is enough to keep yourself motivated for the long term. And
But
when you get started,
I was just
it's
going to
not.
say, I often find also that they're starting from a place of punishment, that I've been really
Yeah,
bad. I'm in this really bad place. I'm going to punish myself until I get out. But that's not going to help you. You need to,
no.
especially when you start looking at things like exercise as punishment and food as punishment. We need to eat to live, and exercise should be a reward. We're getting so many benefits from exercising that if you make it a punishment, you're not going to want to do it. You're not going to carry it on in the long term. That you really need to flip things around to start talking to yourself in a lovely way, the way you would speak to your family and friends,
Oh
not the
my
way you
gosh.
would speak to, well, you wouldn't speak to anyone the
J-
way that you speak to
I
yourself.
know. And the sad part is that most women don't even know that they're doing it. Like they're not even aware of it. One of my clients said to me, she's like, I had no idea how much I hated myself until I started working with you. And it's awful. Like you live in this, you just don't know, you don't even know there's another way because it's just what you've been doing for so long. And you're right, actually, you're bang on about the whole punishing your cycles, you punishing yourself. Like I say, like, you cannot bully yourself into a better body. Like it does not work that way. And we're stuck in this into the cycle. But it's like, are you doing it out of love for yourself or because you want to love yourself? And if you're doing it out of love for yourself, then that's amazing. And you can absolutely love yourself and want to lose weight. You can love yourself and want to improve. We often think it's one or the other. Like I'm either all about self love and I'm appreciating myself and I accept myself, or I want to, you know, change. And you can actually have both. You can, which I think is the best way to have it, where okay, I love myself and I want better. But when you come, or are you doing it because you feel like you're not enough and you're just always getting away from something negative and you're hoping that by upholding some standard for yourself, you're going to start to love yourself. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And all that happens is maybe you do the things, but you still hate on yourself. Like imagine if you worked for a boss that was always criticizing you and it was always putting you down, it was always had these like terrible standards. And if you didn't reach them, you would do the minimum just to get away from punishment. You wouldn't thrive in that environment. You wouldn't be like, oh, I'm just going to do more because I want to. You would just do the bare minimum. And then when you could quit, you'd quit because who would want that? And yet we do the same thing to ourselves. So you're absolutely right how important it is. But it's not easy. Like it's not something that just like having a more positive self-talk or having a better relationship with yourself isn't something that you just decide to do one day and then it's just like that naturally happens.
No, you've got a
Um,
lifestyle, you've got a lifetime of bad habits that you've
exactly.
got to overcome first. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is a habit. I think that's just a great way to put it. We often think about our relationship with ourselves that once we decide to speak more kindly to ourselves, we're just going to go do it. And it doesn't happen like that. It's just like being fit. Like you don't go to the gym once and decide once I'm going to be fit and, do some squats and some lunges and some push-ups and like, yeah, I'm fit. It's something that you practice every day. It's something that you practice on a regular basis. And the same with our self-talk, because we're all going to have times where we don't talk to ourselves well, and that's not a failure. It just means that we need to implement some of the tools that we've learned to redirect those that conversation with ourselves and not look at that as a failure, or that we're doing it wrong, because it's so this whole journey is so much better. It's effective when you come at it from a place of liking yourself or appreciating yourself. And once again, that does not mean complacency. It doesn't mean that I'm going to accept myself and just stay where I'm at. You can accept yourself. You can be appreciative of yourself. You can love yourself, and you can want to do more. You can want to do better.
But it's also about knowing what tools to do. So it's one thing to go, okay, I don't like the way I'm speaking to myself. I know I need to change, but that first
How?
stepping point, exactly the how, um,
Yeah.
comes into it as well.
Yeah, and that's a really, I do a lot of like actually a lot of my coaching, and I've done some podcasts on the how of self love, self acceptance, that sort of thing. of actually how to do it. And we have some sort of, I think, some barriers that get in the way. Like sometimes we do think that if we start to appreciate and love ourselves, that we are going to become complacent, that we are just going to, let ourselves go. And I want to tell you that that's not the case. It's like a kid. I mean, your child, just when your child makes a mistake, you can correct them, you can help them grow, but you're not going to, berate them or tell them that they're an awful person or make them feel ashamed for making a mistake. There's a way to do it, and approaching ourselves is the same. I think sometimes we also have this idea that self-love or liking yourself also means liking the way that you look all the time. And it doesn't have to be like that. We can appreciate our body for what our body does, or even the fact that as our body, women and men, our body is trying to do the best she can for us. If she's gaining weight, there's a reason for it. Like she wants you to survive. She doesn't, so she's there, to help you. She's not putting the weight on because she's trying to be mean to you or anything like that. I think we also think sometimes that self-love or speaking kindly to herself, and I mentioned this already, is something that you either have or you don't have. It's something that once you practice it, once you get it, you'll just do it forever. And that's, again, not the case. It needs to be an intentional practice. And if you happen to catch yourself being really mean to yourself, it doesn't mean that you failed or that you're doing it wrong, or, don't beat yourself up for beating yourself up. It's having the tools to move forward. And I also feel like another barrier or misconception is that we're going to want to do it every day. And sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're just going to be like, I don't care. I want to be mean to myself, because it's a habit. It's a practice. It's something that we've done before.
Well, it's like
And
comfort food. It's comfort thoughts. This is where I feel
totally.
familiar, and therefore I feel safe because that's where I've lived most of my life. It's the unfamiliar, it's the new, it's the different. It's being nice to yourself that's, oh, this is a
Absolutely.
bit different.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. We say we don't want it, but because it is familiar, it's known. The unknown can be very scary for us. And it could take some courage as well, because there is comfort in being the martyr or beating yourself up. And sometimes women commiserate with each other, and they bond over putting themselves down. And if you're in those relationships, sometimes it feels good. It feels comfortable. You're not alone. But let's not support each other at the bottom. Let's support each other by helping us rise up. And it does take courage to step up. One of the first things in terms of changing the language is the simple awareness. So like I said, so many of us aren't even aware of our conversations. So maybe take a journal and just write down, what am I thinking about myself? What do I tell myself? Pay attention, just listen. And you don't have to change anything right away, but just listen. And when you start to become aware of your thoughts, then you can have an opportunity to change them. Um, just because you think something, just because your brain tells you something that may be negative, it doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean that you have to listen to it. It also doesn't mean that you need to stop it. What you get to do, though, is just redirect it. So just because you say something mean to yourself doesn't mean the thoughts are going to come. You don't get to choose always your initial thoughts, but you get to change them. You get to redirect them. And if you are saying something negative to yourself, it's just a practice of redirecting. You can redirect your thoughts to something very neutral. For example, you might say something to yourself like, oh my gosh, my legs are so fat. And a neutral thought would be like, I have legs. It's true, you have legs.
And I'm so
But if you're,
grateful I have legs.
I'm so grateful I have legs. But if the thought is not, this is actually from a book called Soundtracks by John Acuff, which is a great book. He says the three questions you can ask yourself is it helpful? Is it true? And is it kind? Like, my legs are fat. Maybe that's true. Is it helpful? Nope. Is it kind? No. So if you answer no to any of those questions, it's a great indicator that you need to change that thought. So you might say something like, I have legs, or that could be it. It's true. I have legs. I'm saying, I'm so out of shape right now. Like, oh, I'm so out of shape right now. It might be true. Is it helpful? maybe if it's going to spur on action, but then you can do it with, maybe it's a truth. I'm actually pretty out of shape right now, and you can spur on action, and you can speak, and you can speak to yourself kindly as you do it. Um, is it helpful? Maybe. I'm not quite sure. Is it kind? Well, it's not. It's not a terrible thought to think, especially if there's some truth behind it. But those three questions are really powerful, and then starting to redirect and starting to practice. And it feels unfamiliar. It feels odd. It feels like you're doing something wrong. And I think a lot of big fear is that we do fear that if we're kind to ourselves, we're going to give up. We're just going to not push ourselves anymore. We think that if we need to be mean to ourselves in order to change, in order to lose the weight, in order to do better, and you don't have to.
It's a very important message that you don't have to be mean to yourself. There is another choice.
There
And
is.
they were really good tips. So is this true?
Mhm. Is it
Is this,
helpful?
is it helpful?
And
And
is it kind?
is it kind? Yes. Fabulous.
Yeah.
And what was the name of that book again? I missed it.
Oh, it's so good. It's John Acuff is the author. He's hilarious as well. He has a new book actually coming out right now for teens as well. It's Jona and then Acuff is his last name. And he's just funny too. So his book is on soundtracks, it's kind of about overthinking, but it's really about changing the way that you think. And yeah, I mean, I think it took a lot of things that I teach, but sort of made it into like these like little cute little like things that you can sort of package up and tie up with a bow and remember a lot easier. So I recommend that book a lot to the women I work with, because I think it's so important that we do pay attention to our thoughts, and that we also manage what we think. One of the, I think, misconceptions with thoughts is that because I think it, it must be true. And we're told that don't believe everything you think. You see that on social media and these little cutesy little memes, and we like it and share it. But then we think the thought. And what happens when we think the thought is we generate a feeling. You feel anxious, you feel stressed, you feel depressed, you feel sad, you feel because you think the thought, because our feelings are going to be generated based on what we think. And when the feeling comes, it's almost like it proves itself right. Well, it must be true because I have that feeling. And then, or you act on that thought, you act on the feeling, and then you reinforce that cycle again. But just because you think something, it doesn't mean it's true. And that is so powerful. It's so freeing. You can think things like, oh, I don't want to go for a walk right now. You can think that, but it doesn't mean that's one truth, but it's not the truth that's going to move you forward. It's not the truth that's going to be the most helpful. And there is a way you can actually redirect that thought as well to help you do what you want to do. Because our actions are a direct result of our thoughts. And when we can start to change the way that we think, and change the way that we think, it's going to be so not just helpful, but essential to changing our actions.
So is it also worth thinking, like when you're having those thoughts, I don't want to go for a walk. Why don't I want to go for a walk? Is it raining outside? Could I walk somewhere inside? Or what is it? Why am I feeling this way? So that you can try and find, okay, I may be feeling that initially, but is there another solution? Is there a different way that I would be more excited about doing this thing that I don't want to do?
You brought up a really good point. Actually, one thing I'm actually working on right now with my women in our coaching calls, we coach. We have live calls every week, and we have a great discussions. Wonderful group of women I get to work with. But we talked right now about creating more pleasure with the thing that you want to do, and minimizing the pain. And so when it comes to like, I don't want to go for a walk, this is why it goes back to that. Remember, we talked about at the very beginning about having clear goals every day so you know what you're doing, because just because you don't want to do something, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. There are lots of things that you and I both do in our life, and anyone listening to this podcast, that you do even if you don't want to, because you've prioritized it, because you've said that this is a non-negotiable. The problem with our health is that we look at it as a non-negotiable. We look at it as something that's nice to have, not something that we must have, which is also why it's important that we start to prioritize and start to really level up the importance of our health. We often think, well, if I don't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. But that's all costing you that integrity with yourself. It's costing you this trust with yourself. And it's on you and your own health. And you're right. Like sometimes you don't want to go for a walk because you're exhausted, because you maybe had a really big day and you have nothing left in you to go for the walk. If that's the case, well, can you go for a really short one? Can you go for a 5-minute walk and just see how you feel afterwards? So when it comes to, for example, the going for the walk, again, this is how we think. You can say, you can focus on the fact that you don't want to go for a walk, or you can redirect and say, like, yeah, but you know what? I'm going to feel a lot better after I go. And you can have that conversation with yourself. Like, I might not want to go for a walk right now. And you can keep telling yourself, I don't want to go for a walk. I don't want to go for a walk. And that's how you're going to feel. Or you can say, you know what? I know you don't really want to go for a walk, but just go for 10 minutes and see how you feel. That's it. And that, again, is another thought, which is also a true thought. Like the thought that I am going to feel better after I go for the walk is also true. So which thought do you want to practice? And it is about starting to redirect it. And to your point there, it is also really helpful to know what the barriers are and how can I minimize them. Like, for example, if you want to go for a walk every day, but you hate walking in the rain, or the rain is a bit of a pain point for you, depending on where you live in the world.
Yes.
I'm living in a area of the world where it rains a ton. Not yet, but come November, December, January, we're like full on to rain season. How can you decrease that pain point? So maybe you have an indoor option. Maybe you pivot with, maybe you have a treadmill, or maybe you do like a dance video, or maybe you have awesome rain gear and you just go anyway because you have an awesome rain gear. And when you have rain pants, rain boots, and a rain jacket and a hat, you can go. So it is really good, to your point there, to identify the barriers and then to really put your energy into solutions.
That's what we're all about here. Solutions to help us feel better and get the most out of life. Well, Tanya,
Exactly.
this has been an amazing conversation. If anyone out there wants to contact you or to reach out or to work with you, how can they do that?
Oh, thanks so much. So, you mentioned this podcast, I think, is going to go live right away.
Hmm.
So on September 19th, actually, which will be, which, as I record this, it's next Monday or this coming Monday, I'm actually doing a free 5-day challenge called the Self-Sabotage Solution 5-Day Challenge. It's for women over 50 specifically. If you go to sabotage2control.com, you can register there. If you're listening to the podcast after that, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere there, and I have links to everything there. But pretty much across the board, I am at Tanja TANJA _ Shaw on Instagram, just without the underscore, on Facebook, and then my website is tanjashaw.com. And then if you listen to podcasts, I also have a podcast called the Fit and Vibrant You podcast, which you're going to be on shortly.
And
And
you have
that's
over 300 episodes.
I do now, yeah. Plus quite a few more because I haven't some of them are bonus episodes, but yeah, I've been at it for a while. I started my podcast in 2015, so I've been pretty consistent. There was a couple months there that I took a little bit of time off, but when I decide to do something, I keep it going. So there you go. I have lots of fun with it though, and it's an awesome opportunity to connect with other people like you.
Yes. Well, that's definitely how we met.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to chatting to you again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye for now.